Welcome to Literary AF Podcast.
Why, hello, and welcome. Welcome to Literary AF Podcast. My name's Sheldon.
I'm Danny.
And we're going to talk to you today about some books.
Yeah, books.
We are back in the land of paranormal romance.
Yes, the Immortals After Dark universe by Kresley Cole.
That's true. So we did one episode where we did 6 of these books.
Yeah, I sped through 6 books in half an hour and basically didn't actually get to talk about the books very much at all.
Yeah, and that was too much. We bit off more than we could chew with that one.
We were a little over ambitious.
So we're going to try the same thing again, but with only 3 books.
3 books, which means I have just under 10 minutes per book.
So what are our 3 titles today?
Our 3 titles this week are Pleasure of a Dark Prince, Demon from the Dark, and Dreams of a Dark Warrior.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we got 10 minutes per book.
Roughly.
Let's go. First book.
All right, so the first book is book number 7 in the series called Pleasure of a Dark Prince. It is about a Valkyrie named Lucia the Huntress, who is an archer who gained her powers from a god.
Ooh.
And in order to continue to use her powers of excellent archery skills, she has to remain completely chaste.
Okay.
And if she does anything with a man, she'll completely lose all of her powers. The hero of the book is Gareth McCreeve, who is a Lycae, which are the werewolves of the universe.
That's right.
And they all have one mate. And they see that mate, and they're like, yep, that's mine forever. I'm going to have her.
They imprint.
Yes,
much
they
like
basically,
Jacob does to a baby.
they imprint on one person. So Gareth sees Lucia from across a football field, and he's like, oh, that's my mate. That's mine. And of course, Lucia...
Dibs.
What's that?
Dibs.
Yeah, absolutely dibs. And Lucia is like, oh, well, sorry, I have to be chaste or else I can't do anything. So this book it's actually more about Lucia, who was once married to an evil god. She got coerced into marrying this evil god called Crom Cruach. And he rises every 500 years, and it's Lucia's job to basically kill him again before he can bring about the apocalypse. And this just happens to be the point where he's rising again, so she has to go kill him. And some of this book is about her trying to figure out how to do that permanently, so he's not coming back again in another 500 years. And Gareth is basically following her the entire time. There's scenes where he catches up to her, and then she shoots him in the head and puts him down for a while, and then takes off. He's literally following her across the globe because he just wants to help her. He wants to be with her, and she's like, I cannot do this. So they end up in the Amazon. This is the back third of the book. They end up in the Amazon. They're looking for a Dumor, which is a magical item that can kill the gods. And they end up on this Amazon riverboat with a couple other people, and they have to keep their identities a secret because if they can't let the mortals find out about the lore and all the people in it. And they end up finding El Dorado.
City Gold?
Yes, the City of Gold. It's not really... It ends up not being a place. It's actually a person.
Okay.
It's a sorceress god named La Dorada.
Okay.
The way the sorcerer work is they are... The best of something is called the Queen of, and La Dorada is the Queen of Gold and of Evil. So, in the previous book, there was Sabine, the Queen of Illusions, and Melanthe, the Queen of Persuasion. That just means they're the best at whatever in that field. So La Dorada is evil sorcerer. She's the Queen of Evil. And they have to go into her tomb and get this golden arrow, the Dumor, that will kill Crom Cruach and keep him from coming back. When they get there, there's giant snakes and there's like Wendigo, and it's a cool thing. There's like a big city of the dead kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get to her big golden tomb, an evil vampire named Lothair shows up. He'll come up later. He's actually got a book coming up. And Lothair sets off all the traps, wakes up all the Wendigo, wakes up LiteraryAFPod from her sleep, because she was actually asleep, and as long as they didn't wake her up, they'd be fine. He steals a ring off of her, and then he just takes off. And then all the waterways like implode, and the whole city like self-destructs, and she wakes up, and Gareth and Lucia have to get out of the Amazon, and it's a cool action sequence.
Fun.
And then they get to the end of the book where she goes to Kromkruak's cave, and she goes in by herself because he has this, it's basically like a disease where if you're around him, you get infected, and it makes you kill the person that you love the most.
Okay.
So if Gareth gets infected, he's going to try to kill Lucia because he loves her, because she's his mate. And she's unaffected because she was his wife at one point. She married Kromkruak. He tricked her. That's a whole other thing where she left Valhalla to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they got married, he turned around and he was actually like a super grotesque, super awful, evil god who like eats flesh and was horrible. So I didn't save the sequence, but it was a really good description. I should have saved it. She gets captured by Kromkruak, and Gareth comes in anyway to save her, and then he gets manipulated by him into thinking that he killed Lucia. Like there's a whole illusion going on, and Gareth like loses his mind because if a werewolf loses his mate, he basically goes into just a frenzy that he can never come out of, because their mate is the most important thing in the world to them.
Mm-hmm.
So he thinks that he kills her because of an illusion that the god put on him. And he takes off running, and he's going to go kill himself because he's terrible. And there's this whole... He gets kidnapped by his brothers, who lock him in a cage because they don't want to kill him, but there's no way to change him back to normal. And Lucia tracks them down and finds them, and turns out she can change him back to normal through the power of love and sex. So... they have a happily ever after. But at the end of that book, there's like 3 separate sequences where a bunch of other immortals that you're familiar with through the story and characters that you know, they all get kidnapped by a group of mortals. There's Melanthe, one of the sorceress. There is Caro, who's a witch, and Lothair, who's a vampire. There's like, each of them has a point of view sequence where they get electrocuted and bound and have bags put over their head, and then the book just ends.
Okay.
So that was like a really cool hook into the next couple books.
Yeah, that's a good ending. Mm-hmm. So we're at 8 minutes.
Okay.
So we got 2 minutes for general thoughts on this one.
Okay. This one, this was not a bad book, but it was not my favorite.
Okay.
Because it's missing a lot of the ties that the other books have. Like, some of the fun of this is characters will pop up and you'll be like, oh, I know you. Oh, I get to see you again now that you've had your happily ever after with your werewolf. Like, what are you up to? It's a really fun aspect of these when this world has been built up and all the characters who keep coming back are characters that you're already familiar with. Now that we're into the books where we don't have to explain the setup anymore. You know who this is, you know who that is, you know what they're doing, and you know which each side is all about. Mm-hmm. And it focuses more on characters like mixing together, which I really like. This one was missing a bit of that because it's mostly Lucia and Gareth, like, in the Amazon, just the 2 of them.
Yeah.
So it felt kind of standalone compared to the rest. But it wasn't bad. I liked it.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say about this one?
Lucia loses her powers when she has sex with a man.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that she actually lost her powers like weeks before when she went against something that her goddess wanted. And I thought that was kind of a funny, oh, you're actually really strong without your magic powers. Surprise, you actually haven't had them in a really long time. It's kind of cheesy, but I thought it was kind of fun when she has like this really cool sequence where they're getting attacked by caimans, like the boat capsizes and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of caimans that are attacking Gareth, and she's just rapid firing arrows into all of their eyeballs, and it turns out that was just her. She was just super cool. That had nothing to do with magical power. So that was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Alright, so the next book is called Demon from the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
This book is about Caro Gray, who is a witch who got kidnapped at the end of the last book, and Malcolm Slane, who is a demon who has undergone a transformation into a vampire. So he's a Veman is what they keep calling him.
Okay.
So Caro is kidnapped by a group of mortals, and she is put into basically a giant prison that these mortals have made to hold all of these immortals from good sides and bad sides. The humans believe that the immortals are rising up and they're going to try to take over the world, which is not the case. The immortals don't really give a crap about what the humans are doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just humans being, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? They think they're more important than they are.
Okay.
The immortals don't really give a crap. So, the prison is being run by a man called Declan Chase, who is basically interrogating and torturing all of these immortals. And what he does is he sends Caro out to find Malcolm because he wants to capture this Veman so he can study him and do all kinds of awful things to him, because they basically vivisect the immortals, and there's like a whole thing where it's just awful. They do some really bad stuff to them. So Malcolm Slane, they want to capture him, bring him in so they can basically check him out and then kill him, because they don't want any more vampire demons, because vampire demons are unusual in how strong they are, more so than usual.
Okay.
So what they do is they send Caro through a portal into Oblivion, because there's different planes that all coexist, I guess, and Malcolm lives in Oblivion, which is like a desert, hellish landscape full of ghouls and giant monsters and stuff like that.
Oh, I love ghouls.
Yeah, there's lots of ghouls. And Malcolm he's basically holed up in this mountain that's covered in like traps and stuff. He's like living by himself. Very survival man kind of thing going on.
Okay.
He was turned into a vampire demon by a guy called the Viceroy, like 400 years before. He was captured with his prince, and they were both changed by a vampire who wanted to use them for their strength.
Mm-hmm.
And they were tortured, and he ended up killing his friend, and then he killed the Viceroy, and then he killed everybody, basically. The Malcolm has this very strict, like, if you betray me, I'm gonna kill you. That's it. That's all. That's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna kill you no matter what. I'm gonna track you down. I'm gonna kill you. So he sees Caro, and he knows instantly that she's his mate. That's a recurring theme, because vampires and demons both have, like, their fated mate, and Caro happens to be his, which they speculate that the humans might be working with, like, a soothsayer or something, because there's no way they would have just known that ahead of time, but I don't actually know for sure. They haven't answered that question. So there's actually, this was the first book that I read after we finished Twilight.
Okay.
So going from like non-aggressive, super chill vampires into this like crazy evil demon vampire was a bit of a surprise, I guess. I think I've saved the sequence here where this is the first time you actually get introduced to Malcolm Slane. Caro's been kidnapped by a weaker group of demons, and he has like smelled her from across this evil looking forest. What in the hell had spooked a gang of demons like this? As they all plunged into a corpse of petrified saplings, the fleeter ones darted ahead, the slower ones lagging. The young trees had grown so close, it was like wending through a smoke-laced cornfield. Good cover. Yet the demons grew more uneasy, drawing their weapons and crouching low. Asmodel pulled a wooden club from his belt, and Sneethy sniffed the air again, whimpering with a raised spear. The green demon drew a hunting knife and muttered, "It stalks us." a demon worrying about being stalked. When she heard a gurgling yell behind them, her eyes went wide. She ceased any resistance, fleeing with them when the gang began running. At intervals, she glanced back, as unnerved as they were. Then, directly on the path ahead, they came across one of the faster demons, beheaded so recently its body was still kneeling. As the corpse collapsed, Asmodel sneered, "No, the beast plays with us." Another demon's scream warbled from behind them. They'd barely gone a dozen steps in the other direction when something sounded like a boomerang and sailed through the air overhead. Blood rained down. The beast had flung a severed leg like a frisbee to land in front of them. Beside the mangled leg lay a pair of demons, one body toppled over the other. Their heads looked to have been severed, not with a sword but with claws. A single blow took down two. Asmodel swallowed loudly as he jerked her around in a circle, scanning for an escape. Something had beheaded a pair of immortals with one strike, then gone off to slash the leg of another. No, there's got to be more than one, she said. Beings were dying in all directions, screams like a chorus. One, Asmodel snapped. It! The sound of carnage echoed through the trees, the cracking of bones and the unmistakable tearing of flesh. She began shaking too hard to run, stumbling twice in succession. Asmodel promptly abandoned her, taking his chances, sprinting through the saplings. The few remaining demons followed suit, scattering in different directions. She trailed after Asmodel, the biggest one, while all around her others screamed. Then she slowed, squinting in disbelief through the smoke. Ahead, something like a shade seized Asmodel with a staggering speed. Asmodel looked as if he were being lifted by an unseen force. Whatever it was rupturing the demon's body in midair, limbs separated, blood sprayed over dust. He never had the time to scream. The shadow vanished, silence fell. Only the sound of the wind could be heard. Had they all been taken out, or were they hiding? What was this thing? She turned around, her eyes darting. When she reeled back from a nearby sound, she tripped over a legless, beheaded torso, tumbling beside a pool of gore and entrails. This is the hero of the book. This is the main love interest that is doing all of this. which was a big change from Twilight, was basically what I was getting at. I liked the sequence, though. I thought it was like really cool, very creepy. Mm-hmm. That was a good introduction for a vampire demon. So, I forget where I was before that. They basically stay together for about a week, and then she takes him back through the portal to the immortal prison, and he is trapped with a torque, which basically saps all of his powers. They get separated, and then going through to back to the last book, you remember La Durada?
Yeah.
She breaks into the prison because she is looking for Lothair, who stole her ring. And Lothair had been kidnapped by the mortals. And there's like a really cool sequence where she's like screaming for her ring, and she's like limping through the prison, dragging, soaking wet, bandages and pus dropping out of her, and it's really cool. It's a really good spot. And she basically breaks all of the binds off of all of the evil creatures in the prison, because she's Queen of Evil, so she's helping the evil guys. And basically all the good characters are still stuck with their torques on, so they can't use their powers. And Caro and Malcolm escape together. Malcolm hates her because she betrayed him, and he's got that really staunch rule against being betrayed and killing people who want to betray him.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're stuck on the island for a couple weeks. There's a little girl that Caro has to take care of because her mother died. And then they get saved by one of Caro's friends, who Mary Ketta from the previous book. She still keeps popping back up because she's a super strong witch. She sends a vampire in to come save them, and then they take them home, and then there's a big fight, kind of. All the immortals are there. They're like trying to figure out what's going on, because all of their loved ones had been kidnapped on the island, so they all kind of got together to talk to Mary, who's trying to like get her friends back and get everybody off the island. And then Caro shows up with the vampire. Malcolm shows up after, and everything works out, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically it. there's still like a lot of questions left hanging about all the other people on the island, because there's a lot of main characters are still kind of stuck there because they still have their torques on. They can't just like trace away or use their powers to get out. And that kind of ends on the note where they're going to try to figure out how to go back to the island to get everybody back. Because the island was hidden through, I guess, probably magical means. It doesn't really explain, but it was impossible for people from the outside to be able to see it. So getting to the island is extremely hard. So now they have to get back to get everybody else off of it. And then it kind of ends.
All right.
So the last book that I'm going to talk about today is Dreams of a Dark Warrior.
Ooh.
So this one is about a Valkyrie named Regan the Radiant. And the story opens with Regan, 12 years old. She's 12 years old. So this is before she's actually become, like, frozen in her body.
Mm-hmm.
She's just left Valhalla to chase after Lucia, who ran off with Crom Cruach. And she runs into a berserker named Aiden the Fierce, who, berserkers they're mortal men, but they have some magical ability to them. They're super strong fighters. They kind of harbor the spirit of a bear.
Mm-hmm.
And if a berserker wins 200 battles under the banner of Woden, they will ascend to immortality, basically. And Regan meets Aiden the Fierce, who is the leader of this berserker clan, and he sees her, and as with most of these books, he instantly recognizes that she's his mate.
Of course.
Except that she's 12.
Oh, so we've got some flashback
We got
to
a
Twilight.
little bit of a Twilight thing going on. Except that Aiden is like, one day, you'll be my wife. But for right now, I want to send you to live with my parents, and I'll come back for you a couple years.
Okay.
Which is, I guess, better than Jacob, because he's like, I'm not going to see you for a few years, I'll come back for you. Whereas Jacob is just like, we love each other, we belong together, it doesn't matter that she's 3 months old.
I'm calling her Nessie from now on.
So Regan, she's got a thing she's got to do. She's got to go save Lucia. So she waits until the night and she sneaks out. And then she disappears for about 6 years. She saves Lucia. They go off and do their own thing for a while. And then when she's about 18, 19 years old, she goes back to find Aiden. Because he was a hot older guy and he was super interesting. So she's like, we'll go see what this is like. But I'm not going to make any promises. And they're together for a couple months. And Aiden is like, he spent the last 6 years basically doing nothing but looking for her. And so she gets there and they spend a bunch of time together. Things are perfect. They're happy. And then he gets struck down. He comes back from a fight. They sleep together. And then, like, immediately after, he gets struck down by a vampire. Like, a vampire traces into their tent and stabs him through the chest, and he dies. And then it jumps forward to present day. You learn that Regan, she keeps encountering Aiden the Fierce being reincarnated time and time again. Because he promised as he was dying that he would find out how to come back for her. He would come back for her somehow. And that is through reincarnation. And every time she meets up with this reincarnated Aiden, when they kiss, he remembers who he used to be, and then he usually dies within the next couple days. It's happened like 5 or 6 times in the last 1,000 years. And Regan is kidnapped at the end of the other book. She's one of the people who are captured. And when she gets to the prison, she sees the man running the prison. His name is Declan Chase. And she recognizes almost instantly that this man is Aiden the Fierce, having been reborn into another body.
Mm-hmm.
But Declan Chase is basically running this huge torture prison.
Fun.
He's not a good guy. And he's been conditioned since he was like 17 years old to hate and kill all the Immortals that he can.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So I was actually really interested to get to read this one because I was trying to figure out how they would turn it around from this awful guy who is like vivisecting people to making him the main love interest. the book begins like just before the last one did, so you can like hear conversations between them about, oh, Caro just left to go get Malcolm, and then, oh, Caro came back with Malcolm, and then you experience the prison being broken open by Laterada and the escapes of all the immortals and the fighting, and I guess at the same time Declan is having like a internal struggle because he feels drawn to Regan, but he can't figure out why, because she's his mate, and Aiden the Fierce keeps trying to, I guess, come back out through him and to be with Regan. There's the prison break. Regan is vivisected right before, so she's like in really bad shape during the breakout.
Okay.
And Declan actually decides, I'm gonna help her get out, because he had been trying to keep her from being tortured, but what the guy a step above him had sent him on a mission, and then while he was gone, he had Regan tortured and vivisected and all his awful stuff done to her. So when Declan came back and he saw her the way she was, he's like, no, I can't do this anymore. This is awful. We're shitty people. And he helps her escape the prison. They're also with a dark fae named Natalia, a half-vampire named Thaddeus, and a Lothair, who is a 4,000-year-old vampire, who is, up to this point, been like a bad guy. He's called Lothair, the enemy of old, which is... everybody calls him that. He even calls himself that when he's, like, introducing himself to people. Lothair, the enemy of old. But there's a point where Thaddeus helps Lothair from falling into a pit or something. Mm-hmm. And Lothair is like, I'm not going to tell this guy that I'm an evil guy because he just helped me, and I'll just use him to my advantage. We'll get out of here. And he introduces himself as Lothair, ally of old. And I thought that was really funny. That's his disguise, is going from evil of old to ally of old. That works. So there's a whole sequence where they're fighting their way off the island. There's Wendigos everywhere, which are like super infectious. If you get scratched by a Wendigo, you'll change into a Wendigo. And there's like a really fun, I guess, group dynamic where they're all hiking through the woods together because none of them have their powers. And Lothair ends up betraying Declan, and then he turns around and he wasn't really betraying Declan, he was just setting things up so that he could have things go the way he wanted, and all the good guys end up getting off the island, and Declan ends up remembering who he was. Okay. But he doesn't end up dying because so the Mark of Woden is like 2 flying ravens, and as long as a berserker wins 200 battles wearing those, he'll ascend to immortality. And I guess they realized that that's cumulative over all of his lives. Okay. Because he had ravens tattooed on his chest, and then when he was a pirate, he flew under a raven banner, and when he was a cavalier, he had his sigil was 2 ravens, and as the military guy, Declan, he had a pendant with 2 ravens on it that he was given when he was a child, and he's been wearing it, and I guess that got him up to over 200 battles over like 6 lives. So okay. He ended up being an immortal at the end of the book, so the curse or whatever it was that kept killing him didn't affect him this time. And then that's about where it ends.
All right, we're about out of time too. Is there any quick thoughts you want to give on this last one?
There's starting to be like more humor in these books. It's leaving behind like the super serious paranormal romance of the first couple books. Things are getting a little bit more ridiculous. Like Lothair is just bonkers, and I love him a lot. I can't wait to read his book. I'm starting that one actually. I started it last night, so that's gonna be fun. Nyx is a Valkyrie who's about the same age as Lothair. They're both like 400 years old, and they're both like super crazy. But Nyx is like she's a soothsayer and she sees everything, so she's always got like 100 train of thoughts going, and she's like incoherent. But there's like a fun moment at the end of the book where Nyx is like, she reveals that all along she had given him the raven emblem that he wore, that he got when he was a child. So she was the one who gave him the means to be an immortal, and like didn't tell him about it. So she's basically running everything, and she's in all of these little scenes within all of these books where she's pulling all these strings, and she's easily become one of my favorite characters, because she sent Lucia to the Amazon, and then she sent Gareth to the Amazon to chase after her, even though Lucia didn't want to see Gareth. She sent Regan to be captured. Like, she sent him right into a trap, just on purpose, so that she would be captured, so that she could meet Declan again. It's a really cool thing going on, and I'm really hoping she gets a book sometime soon, because there's like 18 books in the series, and she doesn't have one yet.
Ooh.
Yeah. But that feels like it would be like the finale, though. Like, the final book would probably be Nyx's book.
Oh, okay.
That's just because she's so important to the story. It feels like once you do her book, there's like nowhere else to go.
To go from there.
Yeah. You have any questions or anything?
No. I think before your next episode, I should read one of these books.
Yeah. They're really good. There's some that are better than others, but there's a few of them that should be read together because they overlap, or the earlier books can be read better as standalone books, but I don't think they're as good as some of the later ones, like a TV show where it takes like the first season and a half to really get into the swing of things, and then it takes off.
Yeah.
So I have all of them. You're more than welcome to try them out.
Ooh. All right. Well, we should do our
outro.
Yeah,
plugs.
Our plugs. So follow us on
Twitter,
online.
LiteraryAFPod on Twitter.
No, that's your Twitter.
It has become my Twitter.
Yeah.
So, I just took the name.
Follow us on whatever you're listening to us on right now.
Yeah.
Podbean, iTunes, subscribe.
Yeah, Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yep. Follow our brand new Snapchat.
You can make a Snapchat if you want to.
No. Well, we take pictures of books.
Yeah. Listen, I send my friend pictures of books constantly. I find my favorite passages, and then I send them to her, and I think she's getting real tired of it. So.
I occasionally do that. I was doing that during some book I read recently.
Yeah.
Anna Karenina, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, follow us, and don't forget to like us on
whatever
internet.
Just like us.
Oh, we have Facebook, right?
Yeah, we do have Facebook.
Yeah, like us on there.
Yeah, Literary AF on Facebook.
Okay, thanks for listening, and have a very happy
week.
Kwanzaa.
Easter.
All
No,
right.
That's next week. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it will be Easter.
It'll be Easter when this goes up, yeah.
Okay, well, have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.